Mitzy Pearson, and I live about an hour and a half east of Dallas in a little country town called Murchison. I am a brand new Handi Quilter owner. I just purchased the Avante and I put it on the Littlefoot frame. I have been a seamstress since high school. I was inspired by my home economics teachers, and I'm so thankful that way back then we still had really great home ec classes, and I just learned so much from them, and no matter what project it was, no matter how bad it turned out, I just wouldn't give up. I just loved the process. When my kids were little, I made little dresses and little short sets for them, and it was a great outlet for me because even though I was busy, I just couldn't keep my hands still. I would even stay up until midnight or later just so I could have some quiet time to sew. But sadly, as they got older, they decided that they'd rather go to the mall and buy clothes. So I had to figure out something else to do with my creativity. And quilting was just a natural option. The best thing about quilting is that there's no fitting issues. There's no princess seams, no darts, and they always fit. Everybody loves a quilt, and just cuddling up in a quilt, who would say this one doesn't fit me? Well, I guess unless you made it too small. Speaking of small quilts, most of my first quilts were small quilts. I used my domestic machine, and anytime I would try a larger quilt, I would just get exhausted from wrestling the darn thing. Straight line quilting with my walking foot, while it's a nice effective way to quilt, it just was a little bit boring for me. So when I would piece something that was a little more intricate or that I thought needed a little bit more, I would send those off to the professional long armers. Now, the long armers that I use, they are fabulous. They do amazing work. But when I would show someone this awesome quilt, they would just be so amazed with the quilting. And they would say, "Oh my goodness, you did this yourself." And I would have to say, "Well, I pieced the top myself." Honestly, I send off the quilt to a professional for the quilting. And I just felt like I wanted to be able to say, I made this quilt, start to finish. I have wanted a long arm for 20 years. I've test driven every brand, year after year. And there were a couple of reasons why I didn't make a purchase. Number one was I just didn't have the space. I knew that someday I was going to make it work. And I was really surprised myself this year in November when I made it work. But it wasn't just me, it was Handi Quilter and the Littlefoot frame. When I saw that I could put my preferred machine, the Avante, on the Littlefoot frame, I knew immediately that this is the time. It would fit in my room. I could not only quilt small quilts, but I now can quilt any size I want. And that frame is so easy to use. I am an embroiderer. I love machine embroidery and digitizing. So hooping fabric is second nature to me. So when I saw the application of the Littlefoot frame, the way you just place your fabric over, clamp it down just like a giant embroidery hoop, I knew that I could do this. And it really is very simple. Now I can stitch a baby quilt, a tiny art quilt, or a giant king size. I'm not limited. I chose Handi Quilter because of the education. I knew that you can buy the fanciest big machine that does everything imaginable, and if you don't know how to use it, you're going to probably end up doing straight stitching and not really realizing what a gem you have in this machine. So before I decided on Handi Quilter, I searched the internet for tutorials, and I found that Handi Quilter has a huge variety of tutorials. Anything you want to know how to do, there is a video tutorial to teach you how to do it. So I knew that this is a quality machine and it's backed by quality people, and they want you to use it, and they want you to use all of the bells and whistles and to be comfortable with that. So for me, the education was the reason I chose Handi Quilter. When I heard about Handi Quilter's new campaign, Quilt Your Desire, I started to think, what does that mean to me? And what it means to me is you can put your personal signature on a quilt, but beyond that, if you think of a pieced quilt, it's just the top. It can be beautiful, it can be intricate, but it really doesn't come to life until the quilting is applied. So I just feel like I desire to complete the quilt, start to finish, with my own signature so that my heart and soul is in this quilt.